We keep getting taller, right, Barb? Good afternoon. I'm honored to be here to share some thoughts about Dee Dee. For those who don't know me, I was not a teacher at North Allegheny, but I was a student at North Allegheny. And like so many of you, I treasured Dee Dee, so many aspects of her personality that were both enriching to her community, but also enriching to everyone who knew her in every interaction. I will treasure her and her effect certainly on me for the rest of my life. It's interesting the way that Dee Dee and I actually knew each other. I was a 15-year-old sophomore at North Allegheny Intermediate when I first met Ms. Wood, the beautiful blonde teacher who had a class across the hall from where I had a class. She was never actually my teacher. But every day, before the students went into a classroom for my man and literature class, she would be outside waiting for her students to go into her class, and we used to strike up conversations. She was the kind of teacher that just would attract students. She was vivacious, she was very attractive, she was very outgoing, and she always had something really interesting to impart. And so I would visit with her fairly often before I went into class. And she always talked about things that she had done or was interested in doing that were trailblazing. You know, as a young woman student, she probably had no idea the effect that she was having on me, but she was fearless. I didn't see her after that. I moved on to the high school, graduated, went to college, went to law school. Ran for office, became a state senator, ran for Congress, became a congressman, and then came back to normal as a lawyer and became, what else? A golfer. And that's where I reconnected with Dee Dee, probably about almost 40 years later. Lots of time had passed. I learned about how she'd become the golf coach in NA. And not just the girls' golf coach, again, fearless, the golf coach for the boys as well. And one that was really well respected across the WPIAL. She was so respected, in fact, that she became part of the governing body as well, and served with a number of what I would consider old boys on these boards. But she served comfortably, and she always eased into great relationships with the people that she served with. She was extremely adaptable, and as I said before, fearless. So when we were both members of Diamond Run decided to start a women's golf group. And so a number of us became regular golfers in the morning. Because I still work for a living, I could only see them on the weekends. But I became pretty consistent about coming to play. And we'd randomly play with different women. I know a number of the women who play golf with Dee Dee a lot are here today. And I just want to thank you all for being here. Such a great, strong group of people. And people I know, Dee Dee and I used to talk about how each and every one of them was different in her way, strong, wonderful, good friend to Dee Dee. So this golf coach, now retired, is playing golf with a bunch of women. Some of them who were not great golfers, like me. Now, I'm not sure how it happened, and I didn't really realize it was happening, but after a few rounds, I think Dee Dee became a golf coach again. In fact, she was such a great coach during the final summer that she and I played consistently every week. We shaved about a dozen strokes off my score, and that was because she was just so good at teaching, and it wasn't just by telling. I think anybody here who's a golfer is familiar with the person who ends up in your foursome who is always telling you what to do. And Dee Dee would really more or less show what to do. And she would make light of something she discovered, or that one of her students, on a team maybe had learned and gotten very good at. And then all of a sudden, whoever she was teaching that day would pick it up. And she was just so good at it and so kind with the way that she would respond with us, that I think a whole number of us improved our scores when we played consistently with Dee Dee. She was not afraid to share it, and she was very respectful. And I think that was appreciated by all of the golf girls. She was the most busy retired person that I have ever met. As you all know, she wrote 2 books. People talked about it. You heard some excerpts from Grady Gets Classes earlier. But she also was always attending teacher conferences, and she wrote a book for student teachers. And something that's hugely important in today's world, when we know how hard it is for a young person to navigate into that profession. And she continued to go to these conferences and participate and offer her expertise and her experience to younger people, which I think really enriched a lot of teachers we'll never even know. When she began to face some serious health challenges, she'd talk about them now and then, but she'd always persevere through them. She was always very upbeat. And it was very interesting. She had a couple of quotes, and one of them, it was interesting that Debbie actually mentioned that, when you feel low, the best way to feel better is to help someone else. And she really did make that part of her life. When I would talk to her on the phone, she would say she'd just come back from visiting so-and-so who was in the hospital, or she had just made a phone call to somebody who maybe was shut in somewhere, who she knew from years ago. Once Dee Dee made a friend, she never lost that friend or moved on. She always cared about everyone she met, forever. And I know that we are all blessed to have known her, because I'm sure each and every one of you have a story about how she helped you in many ways. In more recent years, especially during the pandemic, she shared with me how her faith had strengthened her, how she loved to remember Scott, and how thinking about Scott did make her sad because he wasn't here, but it also gave her strength because the two of them as a pair made each other stronger. So one of the things she did during the pandemic, again, keeping in mind, a very strong-willed woman, and one that encouraged people to always be doing their best, she wrote letters to our local government officials. She wrote one to the governor, she wrote one to the county executive, and she wrote one to the mayor on the news that during pandemic of 2020 summer, they were going to close ball fields and pools. So she very, very well summarized the difficulties that these students had already been facing because of the pandemic, and that now that it was summer and it was time for the students to be out again and outside where it was safe, it was the wrong thing for the governor and the county executive and the mayor to close these places for children to go and enjoy and grow and actually come back to normal. She really, truly cared about all the people. She wanted everyone to be happy. She said in her Christmas letter last year, "I truly believe that we can choose to be happy despite our losses if we develop a positive mindset." I believe that's true, and I try to do it every day. And remembering Dee Dee, one of the things she also said, that there are 3 types of people that you should surround yourself with to have a successful life. 1, people who are inspired. 2, people who are excited about life. And 3, people who are grateful and act in ways that show that they are grateful people. Now, when I first read that, I thought that was 3 different people that I should surround myself with, until I thought a little longer and realized that all those 3 things were our friend Dee Dee. And I'm so grateful for her. She has inspired me to be strong and to do the things that I know are right. And I'll continue to keep her with me, as I know you all will, for the rest of our lives. Thank you.